behalf of the business community and our community at large. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say welcome to Ohio's Amish country, one of the top tourist destinations as well. So welcome, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the welcome.
My name is Rob Huvis. I'm chairman of the Republican Party in Holmes County. And we're honored today to have Vivek Ramaswamy as our special guest. He was a candidate for president a couple of years ago and started to form his campaign for governor shortly after that. And we're glad that he made the trip from Columbus, and I guess you've got some other points in Northeast Ohio to travel to later on today. So let's welcome our next governor, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. And thanks to our great chairman. Give him another round of applause. You're doing great work here. Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation. You guys really packed the house today. I really appreciate that. This is the energy we're going to need to run through the tape next year. And I want to tell you, the project of making America great again, we're just getting started. This is the very early days of 4 years from now, not just making America great again, but making America greater than we have ever been. And that starts right here in Ohio. The reason I'm running to be governor of this state is this is a state where I was born and raised. My parents came halfway around the world to Cincinnati, Ohio, about a half century ago with nothing to their name. And in a single generation, I've had a chance to found successful companies, married my lovely wife, Apurva, who would be here on these tours with me, except she is, as she would tell you, very pregnant right now. We're expecting our first daughter early next year in February. Thank you. And she's lived the American dream. She's a throat surgeon at Ohio State, the kid of immigrants who came here with nothing to their name. Raising our kids now. We've got 2 boys and our daughter to come in circumstances that neither of our families would have imagined just 20, 30 years ago. And to me, the extraordinary part of that story is that it's really not that extraordinary. Not in the United States of America. This is the country on God's green earth where that story is normal. This is the greatest country known to the history of mankind. It is the American dream for a reason. There is no Canadian dream. There is no British dream. There's no Chinese dream. It sounds silly to even say it. It is the American dream for a reason. It is what makes American exceptionalism possible. And the truth is, and this is part of why I ran for president, it is definitely why I'm running for governor, is the next generation of young Americans, my generation, millennials, I'm 40, the generation below me, Gen Z, they've lost their conviction in that American dream. They've lost their conviction because right now it feels like you work hard, you play by the rules, you can't quite get ahead in the job market. Feels like you graduate from college, did your part with that college debt, get that first job. You can't quite afford that first home. They're cynical. And I'm not mad at them for it. In fact, to the contrary, it's up to us to deliver that American dream. The American dream is not guaranteed. It is a covenant between generations. And right now, it is our job to pass that American dream on to my kids, to your kids, and their generation. That is why I'm in this. And I want Ohio to be the state that revives economic mobility, that revives that culture of greatness in our country from the heart of our country. Texas and Florida, they're doing a great job. Tennessee, I'll give credit where credit's due. But my view to those states is, you've had your turn, now out of the way. It is Ohio's turn to lead from the front. We want Ohio to be not just one of the best states in the Midwest. I want to lead Ohio to be the top state in the country, to raise a young family, to give your kids a world-class education, to be the state that, frankly, patriots across this country flock to and flock back to instead of just going to Texas or Florida. That's where I want to lead our state. Now, when I go to meet our friends in Florida or New York or whatever, they'll say, okay, we like you and everything, but don't get carried away. How can Ohio be that state in America? And I remind them, as we should remind ourselves, that it wasn't long ago that Ohio was that state in the United States of America. At the turn of the last century, we were the wealthiest state in the Union. We led the first industrial revolution. Even in 1950, 6 of the top 15 wealthiest cities in America were right here in Ohio, driven by production. Production of glass in Toledo, the glass capital of the world. Akron was the rubber capital. Youngstown and Cleveland were the steel production capitals of the Western Hemisphere. Dayton, where I was on Sunday, led in computing, led in aerospace innovation. My hometown of Cincinnati was known around the world as the Queen City. We were the consumer products capital of America. And there's a special thing that happens when you're a young person, right, growing up in that state at the heart of the greatest nation known to man. How old are these young ladies here? How old are you, ma'am? 50. You're 50. I like that. You're 11. We got several generations. Yourself? 14. Thank you for coming out today and are you taking a little break from school? Homeschooled? All right. Well, we better make this educational for you then. Yeah, thanks. I respect that. Is your parents here? Are you homeschooling them? Well, good. I'm proud of you for doing what you believe is right for your kids. We'll start with the history lesson of Ohio here, okay? Even in 1950, that's where we were. That was the state that led economically, that gave birth to Neil Armstrong, the first man in human history to walk on the moon. Born, raised, living in Ohio, Wapakoneta, Ohio, as he did it. That was the same Ohio that gave birth to John Glenn, the first American to make it into orbit around the earth. Born, raised, living in Ohio, as he did it. The same Ohio that gave birth to the Wright brothers, who took flight at a moment they were taught to believe that was crazy. Born, raised in Dayton, Ohio. I took my kids, a little younger than yours, to the Air Force Museum in Dayton. We take them every year to remind them of that heritage, that ambition. We need to wake up. And we can be that state again, but we got to believe in ourselves. We have every natural gift we were given the first time around. Fertile farmland, including not far from where we are right now in Holmes County. Great natural resources, natural gas to our east, water to our north, Ohio River to the Mississippi, Erie Canal to New York City. A great location for manufacturing. This is a great advantage of our state. We've got 60% of North America's population within a single day's drive of where we're standing right now. So the way I look at it is, God has blessed our state with every natural gift we could wish for to be the state that leads our country back to greatness, to be the state that powers America's comeback. But we got to believe in ourselves to be that state again. And I will tell you, we deserve leaders who believe in us to be that state. As hopefully the next leader of this state, hopefully as your next governor, with your help, we're going to get there. I have bone-deep conviction that if Silicon Valley led the way for the last 10 years, it is the Ohio River Valley for the next 10 years. We were America's first frontier. We're about to be America's next frontier, too, leading in the sectors of the future, building on our foundation in agriculture and in farming, but also chasing semiconductor production, our defense industrial base, biotech, the state where we actually use the tools of the future, not to take old jobs, but to make new jobs through workforce training and education starting at a young age. And that's going to require some changes in our state. Positive changes. Let me be clear, we're a great state. Very proud of our state. We're a great state, but great is never good enough. If we want to be the top state in the country, then we're going to have to go further. We're going to bring down the income tax burden in this state. It's your money, not the government's. We're taking the income tax rate down to 0 so we can compete with Texas and Florida and Tennessee and bring businesses here. That's what we're going to do. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. That's how we bring businesses to this state. We will do that while also bringing down the property tax burden in this state, which has gotten insanely high. It's unacceptable. People are paying, probably many of you, maybe paying more money in property taxes than in the principal and interest repayments on your mortgage. It's un-American. It's antithetical to our values as Ohioans. And we're going to bring it down one way or another. There's a ballot measure making its way to the ballot next year. If that passes, I'm ready as governor to deal with it. If not, we have a plan to reform the property taxes. Now, our friends on the left will push me on this. They'll say, how are you going to bring down property taxes when property taxes pay for education, but you also say you're going to improve education? And I'm going to get to that. We will. Well, the answer is, ironically, the schools in our state, especially in our cities, like the inner city of Cleveland, like the inner city of Cincinnati, the schools that spend the most money per student now are delivering the poorest results per student. The schools that have seen the greatest increases in funding since the COVID school closures are the ones actually that have seen the greatest declines in academic performance, because those were the schools that got the funding but also shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's not just about throwing money at the problem, it's about bringing standards back to our public schools. And this is a controversial point, but I stand by it because it is the truth. Every kid in this state, when I'm governor, will be able, every kid who's medically capable, I should say, every kid who is medically capable will be able to read by the end of 3rd grade. And if you can't read by the end of 3rd grade, you're not going to 4th grade until you can. Okay, passing a kid like a widget on an assembly line is not compassion, that is cruelty. If you read by the end of 3rd grade, if you know how to read, that's the point where you make the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And if you make that transition, your chance of achieving success in life goes through the roof. If you don't make that transition, your chance of ending up in jail, in poverty, on the street, or on government aid, that's what goes up. Your chance of achieving success falls like a rock off a cliff. We know how to do it. But the question is, do we have the courage to see it through? Numeracy, math competence by 8th grade. Civic competence by the time you graduate from high school. We're going to make sure that every kid who graduates from an Ohio public high school is able to pass the same civics test that every legal immigrant has to pass before the immigrant becomes a voting citizen. You got to know something about your country, to love your country, to pledge allegiance to your country. Start with the pledge every morning with a moment of silence to go along with it. Address that mental health epidemic in young people spreading like wildfire. Depression, loneliness, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. We got to put an end to it by using our schools to bring back that missing self-confidence. To give those young people who want to be, like my wife, a doctor, great, go pursue a 4-year college degree and get the best possible version of it you can and make it useful. But for young people for whom 4-year college degrees are not the right path, who want to be a welder or a mechanic or an electrician or a carpenter or a machine operator, you should also be able to pursue the American dream without having to take on burdensome 4-year college debt. That too is what the American dream is about. See, the American dream recognizes that not everyone has the same gifts. In fact, every one of us, every one of you, every one of our kids has your own unique God-given gift, distinct from every other person in the world, actually. And that we're the country on God's green earth where you get to make the most of your own unique gift without any man or system or government or bureaucracy standing in your way. That is what made America great the first time. That is how we will make Ohio great again. Creating a state where our young people don't have to be spiteful to somebody else's success because they're participating in it with real skin in the game themselves. The state where that American dream is your birthright, where a world-class education is your birthright, where success is your destiny, and excellence is our heritage. That is who we are as Americans. And this is not a humble vision for our state. I will admit that. As my wife would tell you, humility is rarely an accusation leveled against me. Okay, so it's not a humble vision. It is an ambitious vision because I believe that's who we really are. As Ohioans and as Americans. We're not victims, we're victors. We don't whine, we win. When we rally behind the cry to make America great again, that is what we hungered for. The unapologetic pursuit of excellence in this country. And I know that American dream exists because I have lived it. And we will fight every day to preserve it for my kids and for yours. To bring down the cost of electricity in the state by actually producing more energy. To bring down the cost of housing by eliminating the red tape to build more homes. To reduce the costs of ongoing home ownership by bringing down those property taxes. To go into those cities and fight urban crime by getting the repeat criminals and offenders off the street without apologizing for it. By bringing up the standards of public education and pairing it with school choice to make sure the kids in our state get the best possible education they can in the world. This is not about right versus left. This is about right versus wrong. This is about up versus down, and we choose up for the state of Ohio. And honest to God, I mean it when I say this. We're probably a room full here of proud Republicans. I'm the Republican soon-to-be nominee for governor, and we're proud conservatives here. But you can call yourself anything you want. You could call yourself libertarian, independent, orphaned Reagan Democrat, politically homeless, frankly. Some people say that about themselves. I don't care what you call yourself. If you care about giving your kids that world-class education, that is the birthright of every Ohioan, if you care about giving your kids that same shot at the American dream that this state and this country gave to me and to my family, then honest to God, we will work with you, actually, to lead our state to greater heights than we have ever seen. I've loved traveling the state. I love, just talking and listening to Ohioans in different parts of our state, opening my eyes to ideas and solutions and also problems that may not have been even on my radar at the start of this campaign. It's my favorite part of this. And we even talked to the people who disagree with us. I traveled the college campuses of this country last year with my friend Charlie Kirk, who was, of course, sadly assassinated just earlier this fall. I saw him 2 weeks before he died. But one of the things we were always committed to doing together, I see that freedom shirt, right? You reminded me of it. We're always committed to doing is we will always talk to those who disagree with us. We're not going to bend on our principles, but we'll always talk to them. We're not going to hide. So one of the rules I set up is that whenever we have protesters and whenever it's reasonable to do it, okay, whenever it's practical, we're going to talk to them. So not that long ago, about May of this year, not far from where we are, in Wayne County, Ohio, we had an event, about 700 people in the room. But there was a big protest outside, and I said, okay, we're going to go out and talk to the protesters. So it was a GOP event inside, a group of protesters outside. We go out, we meet this woman who is screaming at me when I walk out there. She is so upset. She's an older woman. And she says, why are you cutting our veterans' benefits? I see an Army veteran here today, sir. What's your name? Charlie? Well, thank you for your service, Charlie. I appreciate that. See, veterans. I think she was wearing something signifying she was a veteran, so you knew she was a veteran. She said, "Why are you cutting our veterans' benefits?" I said, "Wait a minute, we're not cutting your veterans' benefits. Where'd you get that?" She said, "No, you're cutting our veterans' benefits. Why are you doing it?" I explained to her, "Listen, ma'am, this is not something a governor can do. B, it would be a terrible political strategy. C, most importantly of all, we're not cutting your veterans' benefits because we stand for the people who have served our country. And we have a 25% recruitment deficit in our U.S. military, which our young people see how we treat our veterans. That's why they're not recruiting. So we're going to treat our veterans better than we ever have. But tell me, where did you get that falsehood?" And she thought about it for a second. And she said, I don't know. I heard it somewhere. And that's just so much of how modern media, modern social media, it all works. So I said, listen, I'm here to tell you we stand for our veterans, but why don't you come in and join us tonight for dinner? What do you say? And I give her a lot of credit. She said, fine, deal. Everybody else is wearing a suit and tie or a nice dress. She's wearing a sweaty T-shirt on a hot Saturday early evening in Wayne County, Ohio. She comes in. I said, we have a spot for you at the head table. Where'd you serve? She said, I served in Vietnam. She's a Vietnam War veteran protesting our event. She comes in inside to the Lincoln Day dinner. 700 people in there, and I'm giving a speech like I am to you all. And she's sitting relative to me about where you are. I'm kind of keeping an eye on her over the course of the evening, and it's kind of awkward because everyone's clapping. She's not sure if she's allowed to clap or not, but she loosens up over the course of the event. And, towards the end of the event, we often do this. We asked everybody in the room who was a veteran to stand up. The entire room gave her a round of applause. She was one of 30 people standing up. We said, you know what, if you're a Vietnam War veteran, would you remain standing? She's the only person in the room left standing. The entire room applauds for her. She gets emotional. We call her up on stage, and we say, you came here to be heard tonight outside of this event. We'll give you 2 minutes. You can be heard inside this event tonight. And she takes the microphone, and she looks at the audience, and she says, you know what? You all have changed my perspective on Republicans tonight. And I thought that was progress. It's one woman on one Saturday evening in Wayne County, Ohio. But I think we have a lot of Republicans in this state that don't yet know they're Republicans. I think that we have an opportunity to lead that next generation of young people who are turning to socialism in New York, right? You look at a self-proclaimed socialist elected on the ballot in New York just this last cycle, mostly driven by young people. 60% of young people say they actually prefer socialism to capitalism. There's weird strains of even young people on the right going in strange and unusual and dark directions that are antithetical to our values as conservatives. But it's our job not to complain about it, but to lead those young people, to revive conviction in that American dream once again. And the reason I want to lead this state is I want Ohio to be the model that the rest of the country is able to follow. And by the time we're done, it will be Texas and Florida following Ohio's lead rather than the other way around. So thank you for coming out today, guys. We love you. God bless you, Holmes County. We love you guys. And maybe we'll take We'll take a couple. We're on our way to Canton later tonight, but we're I think hitting 3 or 4 different counties today. But as I said, my favorite part is hearing from all of you, and thank you for coming out midday like this. It's awesome. I love the energy. And if you're okay with it, maybe we'll kick off with some questions. If the young people have any questions, you guys will get priority. But any other questions or thoughts, we welcome it. Sir, we'll come to you first.
My concern is not too long ago, Jamie Dimon, who's a banker, comes out and he says within 6 months or 6 years there's going to be a bond crisis. How does the state of Ohio, now I got a good idea what California and New York's going to have, how's the state of Ohio's position, and is that a real problem for us here?
So it's a good question. So as a state specifically right now, it's not crisis mode, but we have some real issues we have to address. The first is a national debt crisis that's pushing up interest rates and yields in the long run to combat rising inflation, but it's also, why do you have inflation? The root cause of all inflation is excess government spending. All right, the government's been spending too much money and spending too much money for a very long time. And what drives that spending? It is the growing entitlement state. And this is an issue for our state, where I was looking at some statistics on this earlier today. Workforce participation over the course of the last 2 decades is down. That means the percentage of the people who are participating in the workforce went from 68% at the turn of the century, now down to 62%. You want to know why? What went up over that same period? Government, you named it, welfare without work requirements. So work instead of welfare. That is the formula both for economic growth and fighting the mental health epidemic and fighting that national debt. So if we have the courage, and conviction. I mean, for Democrats are ideologically opposed to it, but I'm not going to criticize them. Everyone can have their ideology. I'll actually in our or even seeking training to do work. In some sense, I don't even blame the people, right? I blame the government policies that create the disincentives. And it's no accident that's the same period of time that you saw depression go up, anxiety go up, addiction go up. The mental health epidemic and the failure to incentivize work crisis are 2 sides of the same coin. So that's actually what it comes down to, is the bond crisis, the national debt crisis. It's all driven by the entitlement state. And the entitlement state, ironically, is hurting the people that they want to help, supposedly help, more than anybody. So I want us as a state to lead the way before we get to crisis mode, to say we're putting people back to work. We're paying more money and rewarding you for work rather than, what is a young man sitting in your parents' basement playing video games, smoking pot, end up on Medicaid and start that cycle again. No, we're done with that. And we do it with a culture that begins with high-quality education, a culture that begins in the family. Frankly, a lot of first-time parents, even in our cities, I mean, they're kind of lost too. I think our schools can do a better job even of educating parents of what the expectations are for parents in the household, so they have something to aspire to as well. That's the kind of thing that I want to bring back to our country, but the best way we can do it is these